So while Bloom is at the stone circle, Sky finds her and is like, yeah, I'm gonna go find the burned one and kill it. Dude, you're gonna die. Hey there, welcome to the Winx Forever Podcast. I'm Lola, creator, host, and lifelong Winx fan. I'm taking a deep dive into the very cool universe of Winx Club. So whether you've been a Winx fan since 2004 like myself, or you vaguely remember the show from your childhood, or you're being introduced to it for the first time, welcome. This is the Winx Forever Podcast. Alright friends, so we're heading into the third installment of our Fate the Winx Saga Dissection. I'm going episode by episode of the first season of Fate and sharing my likes, my dislikes, comments, and concerns, if you will, and even comparing and contrasting it to the original Winx series, though it's tough to compare since it's pretty much a different show. It's a completely different show. However, I am enjoying finding the similarities the two share, with Fate being a total reimagination of the original series instead of an adaptation, which we're all led to believe originally. So, Fate, episode 3, is titled Heavy Mortal Hopes. The description reads, Bloom explores a pivotal memory. Meanwhile, Aisha struggles with her studies. Silva shares a secret, and a school party takes shape. I don't know. I just watched the whole episode. I don't know what the secret that Silva shares is. Is it that, like, they didn't catch the burned one? Like, that part, it confuses me. Ugh. Like, who freaking writes these descriptions? Is it the same person that wrote the novelization A Fairy's Path? Sorry, is that too soon? I'm not looking forward. I'm not looking forward to the, like, prequel to A Fairy's Path that's supposed to come out, like, sometime in the fall. It feels so far-reaching to me. I don't know. I stopped reading A Fairy's Path, and that's on me. I need to just power through and read it all. Because I'm reading the Harry Potter series right now, and I'm right in the middle of Order of the Phoenix, and so, like, you know, I got priorities with my reading material. But it's super short and super little. I need to, like, finish A Fairy's Path so that I can actually do a good review on it for you guys. But until then. So, diving right in, Bloom's vision. So, obviously we were left with a major cliffhanger in the last episode, with Bloom sitting straight up in her bed with her eyes going all white and Bloom's, like, blank stare on her face. Visions were a pretty common thing for Season 1 and even Season 2 Bloom in the original series. The jarring differences between Fate's Bloom's visions and Winx's Bloom's visions, though, is that Fate's Bloom's visions isn't of her loving sister fleeing from the ancestral witches and stashing her away on Earth in a burning building where Mike and Vanessa find her. Instead, Fate's Bloom sees a fairy named Rosalind in her vision, which looks like it's, like, in a hospital surgery room. Like, did Bloom just remember her own birth? Ew. So the show skips forward a week later, and we learn that Bloom has been obsessing over figuring out who this fairy was in her vision, which, like, rightfully so, but also to the annoyance of her sweet mate, Aisha. So Silva is limping around like he's dying because, like, well, he is. They still haven't caught the burned one that, like, slashed him and killed all of his battalion in the previous episode. Oh my gosh! So, I was watching a Winx Club YouTuber the other day who pointed out that Silva is supposed to be Saladin in the original Winx series. And I couldn't believe it took me that long to realize the similarities between the names. Like, clearly they're both the headmasters of the specialist schools. But I died when this was pointed out to me. Like, Silva, Saladin, like, I can't believe it took me that long. Hello? What? So we find Riven and Sky are sparring because apparently all specialists do is stand around and hit each other. No learning special ops, no learning how to transport mystical creatures, no learning how to train and ride dragons, just sparring each other all the time. Cool. Oh yes, and Stella and Sky are still supposed to be a thing because she is there and is supposedly watching them spar, though she can't seem to take her eyes off her phone. Also, I'm not really sure what this hideous pink outfit is that she's wearing, but the headband is giving me major Winx Stella vibes, and for that, I can forgive the rest of the ensemble, I guess. It's really the only outfit in the whole first season that I have a problem with, honestly. Sky is still clearly tilted by the fact that Silva isn't any better from his encounter with the burned one, and Stella literally does nothing to help console him. Because their relationship is all one-sided. Like, it's all one-sided. Stella only wants Sky to be there for her, but she has zero interest in being there for him, even when he clearly needs it. Riven, however, recognizes Stella's failed attempt to try and get Sky's mind off of Silva without really asking him about how he's doing. So Riven, being the complex, good, bad guy he always is, tries to open up to Sky and let him know that even if his self-absorbed princess girlfriend isn't there to help him through this, that his best friend is there if he needs to talk about anything. That's so sweet. And what does Sky do with Riven's amazingly selfless attempt to try and help him sort things out? He flat out ignores him, brushes him off, and leaves. Turns around, walks away, doesn't even acknowledge he said anything. This is why we have villains. Because the selfish protagonists are always too involved in themselves and their storylines to see that the bad guy is really just trying to establish the good in him, but keeps getting dismissed and shoved aside because they're supposed to be, the troubled one. This is exactly what happened to Lex Luthor in Smallville. This is what is happening to Fate Riven, because this is the episode where Riven and Beatrix start to become even closer. I'm not saying it's all Sky's fault. I'm just saying maybe let your, best friend who's usually aloof and kind of a jerk, be human and help you feel things. I don't know. Just a crazy thought. Sky is just as self-absorbed as Stella, and it probably deserves to lose Riven as his best friend to Beatrix and Dane. I said it. I stand by it. Moving on. I wanted to see magic history, potions, study of magical creatures. Instead, we get Dowling showing off in front of first years when she's supposed to be teaching them, I guess. Don't get me wrong, I love Dowling. She's one of my favorite parts of the show. But I think that we could have been able to see more scenes of other classes they have. Unless Dowling wasn't lying and this is the only class that you have as first years. You were just learning to control your powers and it's a slow process. But that's just not realistic, even for a fairy universe. Plus, the next episode, Bloom says that she has to go write the rest of her poison paper before assembly. Whose class is that for? Professor Harvey's? It's one of my quarrels with this show. The instruction that Dowling bestows upon the girls really isn't that helpful either. Honestly, no wonder Bloom resorted to tutor lessons from Stella in the last episode. Aisha loses control with her little water bubble, and Dowling looks frustrated for some reason, even though she did literally nothing to help Aisha understand how to isolate the single water droplet, and water just goes everywhere, and she called the end of class. I think that it would have been more powerful if another water fairy from the other side of the room had, shown up Aisha instead of Aisha getting frustrated with herself, because at least then Aisha would have more of a valid reason to be frustrated. Not that getting frustrated with yourself or even like self-loathing is not a valid reason to be upset, because they definitely are, but understanding that Aisha is also a competitive athlete, it would make more sense that her competition translated to other classmates besides just Bloom. And really, I mean, honestly, you can't compare water and fire. Like, I don't know.
You're listening to the Winx Forever Podcast.
Tara genuinely wants to be taken seriously, and you can see it, throughout the first season. She wants to be taken seriously by her dad, by Dane, by her sweet mates. It's this side of Tara that gets to be more explored than, her body image trope further in the series. And I'm glad that it does. I high-key love Tara's Althea sweatshirt in this scene. The teal and the pink emblem, and her like pink lip gloss to match it. It's so cute, and I love it. I would love for that to be like a real item to purchase. That would be so cute. I also love this scene because it's so funny when Musa does like broadcast people's emotions when she feels them. It's almost like she doesn't really know how to connect with other people other than acknowledging she knows what they're feeling at that moment. Like, she's trying to connect with people, something she seems to struggle with and likes being a loner type. So she uses her power to try to, like, make a connection with those around her. However, what Musa doesn't seem to get is that there's a difference between knowing what a person is feeling and understanding how and why they feel that way. Maybe that's something that will be worked out throughout the rest of the season or even into season 2. But honestly, it's even funnier that Tara and Musa are roommates, because even though they may seem to have glaring differences, they are also very similar in the sense that they don't truly let people in and see how they're feeling. They both like to bottle up their emotions and deflect. Musa redirecting the conversation when Bloom jokes about broadcasting her feelings and Tara shoving her feelings aside so that she can focus on Bloom's problems. There's so much there that Tara and Musa will be able to like bond over in the future. I feel like, at least. So Bloom asking Tara about Silva and then asking about Sky, I really do feel like she was just worried about Sky as a friend. Like, I don't think that she's had enough interactions with Sky one-on-one yet to develop any, like, deeper feelings for him other than she just thinks that he's hot. Plus, she knows that Stella's kind of crazy and doesn't want to get involved with that like she told Sky in the previous episode. But can we talk about how I hate the shot of Stella looking directly at them when Tara is like, Sky is such a great guy, but Stella? And it cuts to a shot of Stella across the canteen, literally staring at them. She's not an air fairy or a mind fairy. Like, she didn't hear them or sense them talking about her. They just should have used a different shot, in my opinion. It just looked so awkward, because it wasn't even like there was like motion to like Stella's physique like in that shot. It was just almost like a still frame of Stella. I hated it. Oh my gosh. Blech. No. Next.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever Podcast, consider following us on our social media at Winx Forever News.
So, all of the military jargon that Silva spits out at Sky all the time is so tiring. Like, we get it. They're a military school. Cool. I don't know. It's just sad to see how much they reduce the specialists in Fate 2 versus the original series. Like, I miss the leva bikes. I miss the spaceships. I miss the special missions. It's sad. Crying. Also, what the heck Why doesn't Althea have a proper infirmary? Like, even Hogwarts has an infirmary. What gives? Actually, I probably know what gives. I mean, set budget, but yikes. I have to remind myself. It's still the first season. They probably didn't have a lot to work with, including budget and set design and all this stuff. So there's some areas they did like phenomenal on the set. There's others it's like, why why is the greenhouse also where they take care of like injured people? That doesn't look good, Farrah. So finally, we see something that indicates why this show can be called Fate, the Winx Saga. Their suite is called the Winx Suite, as seen in a transition establishing shot of their suite number and the name. Wild. Bloom is looking through Tara's dad's old yearbooks and finds the fairy she compared to Farrah Fawcett at the first of the episode, and Aisha, apparently not knowing who Farrah Fawcett is, asks Bloom if she found Fairy Fawcett in the yearbook. I have an issue with this. Either Aisha was just making an offhand joke, or she truly didn't know who Farrah Fawcett was. And if the later is the case, why? Like, why would she not know who that is? These magical beings know about iPhones, Harry Potter, Instagram, and yeah, even a beauty guru, Huda Kattan. Like, clearly products of the first world. It's apparent they know plenty of things about it and from it. So Aisha was probably trying to make a joke or poke fun at Bloom, but still, it just seems... When I heard it at first, it just sounded to me like she didn't know who Farrah Fawcett was. But I don't know, I could be wrong. So then Tara calls after her suite mates and asks if anyone knows how to do cat eye winged eyeliner. This is such a pure, like, girl power Winx moment. Them getting Tara ready for the party in the bathroom. It's just, I love it. It's so cute. There's a lot, like, as the show progresses, there's a lot more of those, like, true Winx moments that I feel just relate so much to the original series. I love it. Freaking... The scene with Marco giving a progress report, there's so many questions. Why are they in the middle of a dang cafeteria? Shouldn't they be in, like, Talon's office or something? Heck, even, like, the greenhouse. Why are there random candles on the table? Why, for the love of Winx, are they using an iPhone for this very important mission? It's all so confusing. It's one of those scenes where if you think too hard about what's going on, you start to lose focus and you just get all confused. And that's why I'm going to move on. And then we get to the party scene. This is exactly why they should have been college age for this series. I appreciate the young adult themes, sure, but at least make them young adults. They are 16 and 17 years old. Sure, like, they say they're out of college, but they're still teenagers throwing keggers and smoking. It's not the best look. Like, all that stuff, that kind of stuff happens at university, you know, like college. Like, at least it does in America where I grew up. Maybe kids in the other world go to college at 16. Whatever. Tara brought weed brownies to impress Dane. Classic. Sam and Musa are sneaking around Tara the whole night. Classic. Bloom wanders off, finds a sad Sky, and convinces him to come play beer pong, and he agrees, even though he told Stella literally hours before that he wouldn't be drinking that night because he's so worried about Silva. What's the worst that could happen? Bloom encourages Aisha during their game of beer pong to use her magic to toss the boys' ping pong ball out of their cup, and gets Riven soaked in the process. Aisha gets embarrassed and runs away. And then this is where things get interesting. Riven, being the true douche canoe he is, decides to tell Bloom in front of Sky who Ricky was and what happened to her. I can't really figure out Riven's motive here other than to remind Sky how absolutely ridiculous the whole situation is with Stella. But I mean, it works because not only does it scare Bloom away from Sky, but it also prompts Sky to go and have a conversation with Stella elsewhere at the party. So after all of that conversation with Riven and Sky, Bloom goes to find Aisha, but instead finds an old storage room full of battalion photos, and she discovers a photo of the fairy that left her in the other world. And of course, in walks freaking Beatrix. I will say the props for this scene, there are so many awkward group photos of these battalions. I don't know, I didn't pay close enough attention to see if the battalion members changed out in maybe they're different years of the battalion, but they look so awkward. There's just one where a bunch of them are standing in a ditch. I don't know. It looks really funny. Go back and look at it. It's really goofy looking. So Sky gets a text from Silva in the middle of confronting Stella about why she keeps lying about what happened to Ricky. He gets a text from Silva that says that the burned one's been killed. And so Sky goes off and talks to Silva at the specialist training facilities. And Silva informs Sky that the burned one that they killed wasn't the one that attacked him, and he's still going to die. Sky, likely still drunk, gets frustrated and delivers my favorite line of the whole show. He tells Silva, F that, meaning, just standing aside and letting Silva die. And Silva tries to stop him, and Sky's, already started walking and is some ways away, and you can just hear him yell, F that. I don't know why, but I think this is so comical. I don't think it's supposed to be, but I thought that sequence was so funny. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. So Bloom goes to confront Dowling about the woman that she found pictures of in the, old part of Alfea or whatever. And Aisha literally told her not to. And it was so funny because, Bloom's yeah, let's go. And Aisha's I mean, if you want to, go into self-destruct mode, do it. But then Bloom's you don't want to come with me? No! She doesn't want to go see the headmistress drunk in the middle of the night. Idiot. So, good on Aisha for not, tailing, Bloom, literally everywhere she goes and, just saying yes to everything. It is interesting seeing the contrast between Farrah Dowling in Fate and Farragondo Winx. In 4Kids dub that I grew up with, Farragondo was so, motherly to Bloom. It's different seeing Farrah Dowling being a stricter parent figure to Bloom in Fate. Even though Farragonda had an idea of who Bloom might be in the first season of Winx Club, I assume that, Farrah Dowling did in Fate as well. Bloom clearly didn't appreciate what Dowling had to say about Rosalind, so she goes and shoots all of her firepower into the vessel at the Stone Circle, and is just overcome by a ton of emotion, but doesn't burn down the place, so that's at least something. Even in the original Winx series, emotion has always been connected to magic. Bloom's magic in the first season was always strongest when she was angry, or sad, or provoked, or wanted to save her friends, it's always been a thing, and it's really cool to see that it's in Fate it's no different. And I really like how they explore the different sides of emotion and how it sparks their powers. Whether it's Tara getting pissed off at Riven, or Aisha trying to save Bloom from her own fire, or Musa's inability to control her power because she's overwhelmed by so many people's emotions. Or even Stella's power is affected by the pressure of having to be perfect all the time. emotion affects everything in real life and in Winx life. So crazy, wild. So while Bloom is at the stone circle, Sky finds her and is like, yeah, I'm gonna go find the burned one and kill it. Dude, you're gonna die. You don't even know how to kill a burned one, first off. Second, he's so lucky he ran into Bloom, honestly. How was he even going to find it if not for Bloom's, like, freaky connection to it? And she can hear its, like, whispers to her. Like, not that he knew that, but, man, just gonna go off and, like, yeah, casually kill a burned one. Like, dude, Silva couldn't kill it. You think that a highly trained specialist couldn't kill it? You think you can? You're a second year. Little scrawny white boy. Like, what are you doing? And he doesn't even kill it in the end. Farragonda does. Or Faradowling. Gosh, that's so hard for me. Also, man, I was really hoping that the whispers weren't the burned ones. And that it was actually Daphne's voice, Bloom's deceased sister from the original series. Like, just sad. Cut back to the party, and Stella is looking for Sky when Ribbon makes a totally snide comment about whether she's seen Bloom anywhere and that they're totally just friends, no need to blind her, like he revealed she did to her last best friend that flirted with Sky. And Stella's like, I wouldn't waste my magic on a changeling anyway. Dang, girl. She really just outed Bloom like that. What the heck? So anyway, Bloom then texts her sweet mates about the burned ones and the stone circle. Hijinks ensues.
You're listening to the Winx Forever podcast.
Meanwhile, Beatrix is casually breaking and entering into Dowling's office and is now exploring the underground school tunnels. I'm really glad they kept this aspect of Winx intact. Winx is nothing without tunnels under the school. In case I need to clarify, that's a joke. Even though Beatrix is one of my least favorite villains in the whole Winx universe, this scene did solidify her, like, evilness to me when she just straight up kills the lanky admin dude. Like, poor Callum. He literally couldn't defend himself either. Like, he's a no-match. Like, so... Of course he was easy to kill. I wonder how he became Farrah Dowling's assistant if he doesn't have magic. Like, maybe he graduated from the specialist school? Or maybe the other world has muggles like Harry Potter does. Like, what are they called in the Harry Potter universe? Squibs? Maybe Callum is a squib. Maybe. I do now understand why Dowling, Silva, and Harvey had to be in another location other than Dowling's office so that Beatrix could even break into Dowling's office and kill Callum without her in there. But really, the cafeteria? They couldn't have at least met in, like, Harvey's office? Whatever. I digress. So, the next series of events feels so Winx Club to me. All the girls coming to help Bloom and Sky defeat the burned one. All the girls individually using their powers to help. Even Musa sensing that it wasn't dead yet. And Farrah, Dowling coming in like the nick of time to save their butts. It's just, they're just all very cool scenes. And I love it. I do want to point out that Bloom's shoes... Bloom's shoes are different in this scene. From 40 minutes and 30 seconds to 41 minutes and I think like 2 seconds. They look like they're some kind of like Ugg boot, but since the party scene, Bloom was wearing little booties with tassels on the outside of the boot. Like, I don't know. I love looking for things like this, but it's so funny. It's like spotting the Starbucks cup, you know, in that one scene of Game of Thrones. It's the little things. I wish we got to see what Dowling's consequences were for the girls going out past the barrier and trekking down the burned one. Like, was it detention? Did they have to clean all of the Great Hall? Did they have to reorganize the library's catalog? Which reminds me, we never get to see a library in Fate. What the heck? I just realized this. And now I feel even more cheated. Man, what a shame. I hope that is something that they bring into consideration for the second season because, like, the library was, like, a cool thing in the original Winx series. So, man. Yeah, what the heck? I hate I hate that Sky and Stella have this little like conversation after the girls go upstairs, and he still puts up with all of her like needy selfishness in the next episode, at least for the first half. We know how that pans out for Stella, but yikes. I did like how the end scenes wrapped up all the themes from throughout this episode. We got the Sky and Stella scene, the Musa and Tara talking about Sam scene, Tara finding out that Dane is just a scared little freshman who wants to fit in, so he's trying to fit in with Riven and Beatrix by being an asshole scene. And then we have the Bloom and Aisha scene. I loved this scene. Aisha shares more about why she gets annoyed with Bloom's desperation to make her journey of discovering more about her origins this elaborate thing when she should just be grateful that she's a natural with magic, something that even Stella, a second-year princess of the realm, struggles with, let alone Aisha, who is a competitive academic who doesn't understand why she can't easily summon her magic like Bloom. Yeah, I teared up at this scene, not gonna lie. And then we have the scene with the entire 3-person faculty of Althea. I swear, I will never get over that. If we don't get introduced to more teachers and staff in the college in the second season, we riot. So Dowling says that Bloom visited her that evening and asked about Rosalind, and when the others had, reacted so ghastly, she says, we cannot let the two of them meet. Okay, Dowling, what? Like, I get it, Rosalind is straight evil and will use Bloom as a mega-charged fire fairy weapon. But, like, why not freaking tell her this crap? Maybe, like, Farrah doesn't quite trust Bloom yet? I don't know. But it just seems to me that you have a changeling fairy that you've taken in, and you should at least tell her or let her in on the assumptions that you've managed to make about her origins. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me. It just seems a little courteous. Well, that is all for episode 3. We are halfway through our Fate episode dissection, guys. Wow. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and if there's anything that you want me to dive into more specifically in the next episode as we dissect episode 4. I will leave you now with my initial reactions from the time I watched Fate episode 3 for the first time when it was released. So, enjoy. All right, episode 3. I have so much to process. Bloom was cast perfectly. She is our Bloom through and through. The awkwardness, the searching, like desperately searching for answers. Literally our fearless, determined Bloom. Like, we'll stop at nothing, and I love it. I do wish that Aisha was a little more badass. Tara is for sure my favorite character. She is everything that I was hoping that she would be, and I love it. I hate that everyone's such a dick to her. She seems like the only decent human. Her, in order, her, Aisha, Bloom are my favorites. The weirdest part for me is that it's a very niche show that I thought I only cared about for the past 17 years, and now, like, there's a whole live-action Netflix show. It's crazy. Like, hearing the characters that we grew up with coming out of the mouths of the actors is the wildest part for me. The biggest thing I miss is, I miss the Witches of Cloud Tower. I hate Beatrix. She's the worst still. The worst villain. Don't like her. What else? I hate that Stella's a bitch. Stella shouldn't be a bitch. She's a confident queen, and I love her. Music gets on my nerves. And it irritates me that Tara irritates her, which, like, I get it, though. Like, she can, like, she's, like, heightened senses, like, with everybody. And, like, Tara is, like, a 7, I assume. Probably 7 wings 6. So it's, like, I get it. But holy moly, cut her some slack. Stop being a dick. I don't I don't know. There's a lot of things that could have been written better. I miss the futuristic technology. I think I've already said that. Yeah, we're gonna keep powering through. Oh, I yawned. Okay. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, consider following our social media linked in the show notes below. The Winx Forever podcast theme is the song She Makes Magic by Big Wild.